Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Robert's Reviews. Today is the 50th movie review. That's right. As of right now, as of this moment, as of this publication, we have talked about 50 movies and TV shows right here on the channel. And by TV shows, I do mean general TV shows, not different seasons, because I figured it's one piece of media. So, that is really great. This is the 50th piece of media that we've discussed and gone over right here. And I'm so happy that today we're going to be talking about one of my personal favorites as we are continuing the trend of the top 8 movies that I'm thankful for. We're going to be talking about The Perks of Being a Wallflower. The Perks of Being a Wallflower was released in 2012 and was written and directed by Stephen Chbosky, who also wrote the novel. And this novel is the best novel in the world. And I do mean that literally. It is the best novel in the entire world. I read this book every year before school starts, and I have since like 6th grade. It is that influential. I mean, look at this. This is like falling apart, and I've only had this copy for a couple years because people always ask to borrow it, and then I let them borrow it, and then I just let them keep it because then they can read it, and then I just buy another copy because it's like, I don't know, less than $10 maybe, and it's just literally the best thing in my life ever. It is, if you haven't read this book yet and you're a teenager and you're going through high school, even college, I would say this is probably appropriate. You really should read it. I read it once a year. It takes like, I've read this in a day before, but at most like 3 days to read. And it's just one of the most influential books in the world. And today we're going to be talking about the movie version of it, which is also extremely relevant because it's also written and directed by the same person. So he didn't make many changes, and the changes that he made were only purely to make it more cinematic. So if you really want to, you can just watch the movie, but the book has a little bit more. Obviously, it's got a little bit more meat to it, and it really is fantastic. I'm sorry about my hair. I just woke up recently, and I'm trying to get through all my videos for the week because I've got a busy week ahead of me. And then also I figured I could talk about this book real quick. Imaginary Friend. It is much larger than The Person Wallflower, but he took like a 20-year hiatus and didn't write anything, and then he wrote this one, and I read it, and it is fantastic. I did not think I was going to like it. This is actually a horror book, which is very different from The Person Wallflower, but this book is, just for one, it's amazing, but also, I happened to get my hands on, wait for it, let me find it. I happened to get my hands on his signature. That's right, I have Stephen Chbosky's signature. So good. I love collecting signed copies of things. I have 2 signed copies of John Green books. No, 1 signed copy. 1 signed copy of John Green books. I have 1 coming on the way, his new book coming out, which is like, no, it's nonfiction, so don't worry about it if you missed it. And then I have a signed copy of the Hank Green book, but I think Stephen Chbosky's is the one that I'm most happy to have because he's so influential. He also directed the movie Wonder, so that's pretty cool. Those of you might know him from there. Also, he is slated to direct the Dear Evan Hansen movie coming out, which I'm very excited for because it does star Ben Platt, and he did that as well. And I'm very excited, and I have a signature. How cool is that? Anyway, enough talking about him as a person, and let's get right into the movie. So, the movie is fantastic. It starts off with Charlie, and Charlie is essentially writing letters to someone nobody knows. It always says "dear friend" at the beginning of it in the books. In the movie, it's less about writing the letters than it is about just telling the story, which is okay. And essentially, it's about him going through high school and trying to be a person that has friends and like isn't a recluse. Because for so many years he's just been invisible and stayed in the background of things. Because his aunt died, and his aunt was his favorite person ever, and he got depressed, and then he's very suicidal. And so then he finds these 2 friends, Patrick and Sam, and they introduce him to a lot of negative things, but also bring into a light that like they're still friends. And then throughout the whole book, he has to struggle with the fact that Sam is older than him and he really wants to be with her in a romantic sense. And then he also realizes that, Patrick and Sam are going to be going to college. Then he's going to have nobody again. and it really is just such a beautiful story. I don't want to spoil too much because this is on Netflix, by the way. It did recently get put on Netflix, so for those of you who want to watch this, you really should. It is by far the most influential piece of media on my life. The two that are I put higher than this were just because they're more cinematic and more fun and not necessarily less meaningful, but just they're different. And the book would be number one on anything. It's my favorite book of all time. And it really is just great. I'm not going to spoil anything because I really do want you to watch this movie, but I will talk about some of the relevance in my life and in your life with that this movie and this book could bring. So it talks about um, homosexuality because Patrick is gay and he has a closed relationship and a secret relationship with a guy, and he doesn't want it to get out, and then it suddenly gets out, and then he has to deal with that. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, it has that. It talks about drugs and alcohol because Sam and Patrick like to drink and smoke, and so they accidentally get Charlie involved, and it gets into this weird like balance of did we do the right thing or the wrong thing there? And it shows how your friends can influence your life. And just because your friends are a negative influence, it doesn't mean they're bad people. That is a really crazy thing that I learned. And I learned this at a young age. It's like you can have a best friend who's really just a bad influence, but still be a great person. Like just because your best friend smokes weed doesn't mean you have to smoke weed. And it doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make you a good person. The inner morals of a person decides who they are in relation to other people. Really, it doesn't matter what they do as long as they are a good, like, solid person. And Charlie kind of battles with that. He's like, are these people like actually my friends, or are they just using me, to go to parties and get alcohol and stuff like that? And obviously, he learns that they're really close friends with him, and it's not about the drugs or the alcohol because they're good people and they care about their friends first. What else to talk about? It talks about suicide a little bit, and how to kind of calm that down. There's a crazy plot that is unexplained on purpose by the author himself. And I have my own thoughts on it, and I'm not going to say what my thoughts are, but after you watch the movie and after you read the book, contact me. I'd love to talk about it because I went online after I read it the first time and I was like, I think this happened, but I don't know. And like there are people that agree with me, and then there are people that are like, no, that definitely didn't happen. This happened instead. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so cool. And then I try to get Chbosky's thoughts on it, but he says that it's up to the reader, and I'm like, God damn it, I hate when they do that. John Green does it a lot too. I've read every John Green novel, and they are my favorite. They are also very good. I think that Perks Being Wallflower is above the John Green books, but only barely. What else does it talk about? It talks about literally everything. It talks about mental illness of all kinds. It talks about negative relationships in terms of boyfriend girlfriend, where like, if your boyfriend's hitting you, you probably should get out of that relationship. And it talks about teacher student relationships on a special level. I have always had a good relationship with most of my teachers after ninth grade, I would say, because I had a crazy teacher in ninth grade. I'm not going to say who it is in case they watch my video. Just crazy. But there's a special kind of relationship. It's not mother father, it's not friend friend, it's just teacher student. And it's a really special relationship. And Charlie builds one of those relationships on the first day with Bill, who in the movie is called Mr. Anderson, but in the book they just call him Bill. Um, and really, it's a special relationship that I think students sometimes take advantage of and don't realize that it's there until it's gone. And by reading this book before I started school and like even during school, I was able to recognize that a teacher-student relationship is strong, and you know you could do. I've sat in classes where the student is just downright disrespectful to the teacher, and the teacher still likes the student. It's unbelievable. And it talks about that kind of stuff in this book as well. It talks about literally everything. Every problem that you could have in high school, it talks about it. It is so good. It's like my Bible. I read it every year before school starts, even college. I read it in September this year. And like it's just the most helpful book in the entire world, and the movie's just very good. I'm going to talk briefly about the acting because all the acting is phenomenal in this movie, so I don't have to talk very long about it. Logan Lerman as Charlie. Logan Lerman is the unspoken hero of this movie. He is so good at playing awkward and like uncomfortable, and it works so well. And I haven't seen too much of Logan Lerman. I know that he was in the Percy Jackson books and, or sorry, the movies, and he was really good in those, but for a very different reason. And I think that the Pursuing Wallflower might be where he can live. He can live in that. And honestly, I'm hoping that we get a better adaptation of a John Green book at some point. I would love to see him in, Looking for Alaska, perhaps. Although there's a show about that, and I've heard it's kind of meh. I'd love to see if I can get a Will Grayson adaptation for a movie. I would literally blow my mind. Oh my gosh! And then Logan Lerman as the first Will Grayson would be so good. Even Turtles on the Way Down would be pretty cool, but unlikely. I think that that's where Logan Lerman lives. He lives in that comfortable area of like really good teen stuff and also really cool adult stuff. He's got a lot of really good movies. I do plan to review all of them at some point. Probably not for the next like year or two because I do have a lot on my plate and I'm very excited to go through so many more stuff. I'm so excited. I've got so much going on. It's so great. Ezra Miller as Patrick. A lot of you might recognize him from the Fantastic Beasts franchise. But he is funny as hell in this movie. He plays Charlie's gay friend Patrick, and he's just over the top gay. He's one of those people that are like very out, and it works so well for him. And in the book and in the movie, it really is just so fun to see him having fun. You can tell that Ezra Miller is having fun playing Patrick, which is something I think that viewers take for granted because when they're actually having fun, it really does make the whole thing better. Paul Rudd as Mr. Anderson. That's right, Paul Rudd's in this movie. It just blew my mind. I love Paul Rudd. I don't watch the movie too often. I read the book more often than I watch the movie. I watch the movie probably once a year, maybe once every other year. But every time Paul Rudd's there, I'm like, oh, Paul Rudd, hey, buddy. And he plays the dramatic role of a teacher. And, like, it's not a very funny role. He's got some funny lines, but that's the cool thing about comedic actors is they know how to play drama very, very, very well. Like Jim Carrey, Steve Carell, they're all so good at these dramatic roles that like they're often overlooked. And you should really watch Paul Rudd in this movie because it's really quite memorable. And finally, Emma Watson as Sam, and you might recognize her from the Harry Potter series as well, playing Hermione Granger. And she does really really well in this. I think this is her first movie outside of the Harry Potter franchise, and it worked really well for her. And I know that Steven Chbosky tracked her down to play this role because he liked her a lot in the Harry Potter series, and it worked so well. She plays his sweet innocence and happiness, and then she can play crashes of depression so fast. She can go from happy to sad in like 2 seconds. It's really quite amazing. That's all I want to spend talking about this. I'm very happy. This is my 50th show for you guys, so it really is. It's incredible. We've gotten so far in the past 2 months. I don't know how many subscribers I'm gonna have when this comes out. I have like 43 right now, I think, when I'm filming this. It might still be 43. If you haven't subscribed, really truly consider subscribing. It really helps me out. Makes me know that I'm doing the right thing. And please, if there's anything you want to see, I mean, I'm very excited to be a YouTuber who puts other people before him, where I'm going to be doing what you want to see. That is my plan. Over the next couple months, we're going through all of the reviews. I've got Tron coming out next week. I've got The Last Dragon coming out this week. I got Tron 2 coming out next week. I've got it really. They're all reviews. They're all requests. So put them in the comments down below. This movie gets an A plus. I don't know if I mentioned that before. A plus, obviously. Go follow me on Twitter, Instagram. What is the other one I have? Facebook. Go follow all of those to keep up with updates, and you can DM me, PM me on all those, and I will answer you. So make sure you're doing all that kind of stuff, and subscribe. Please subscribe, like the video. As always, keep watching movies, stay educated, and I will see you guys in the next video.